when we had that memorial with the staff, somebody said, what do you think of when you think of Eugene? And one of the nurses says, pull me up. And poor Dad, he was a big man. He was very, very tall, and he kept slithering down in the bed, but he didn't have the strength to move. And so many times a day, pull me up, where's we to hear? And so that was kind of a good memory.
I have to tell this other story about Chris that day because
that's a hilarious story.
Dora, the nurse, she comes in and he's just kind of sitting there playing it cool. Dora is saying, well, Chris, I'm going to be coming out and making sure you're doing okay and checking up on you. And, I'm going to have to ask you about your poop and pee, And Chris, he looks at her like that for a second and he goes, that's classified! And she just busted out laughing. So anyway, I had to tell that because
Turn the room
even
upside
at that
down.
stage where he was.
Yeah, because I'm sure it had been a little more somber before that because I was having a really tough time that day. If those three people hadn't been as wonderful as they were, it would have been way worse. But I just remember, I was not accepting things very well at that time. I was really pushing back. And so he made me feel a sense of comfort and ease, with his humor. And I think then everybody just kind of exhaled from there and it got a lot better.
Mom and Dad were married for 67 years. They met in Fort Morgan, Colorado. And after Dad came back from the service, they began dating. They were married there in Fort Morgan, Colorado. I always remember that when Mom or Dad would leave, they'd always have a little kiss, just a little tiny kiss, and off they go. And it was fun to watch them walking together because most of the time they held hands. So that was kind of a precious memory.
In fact, we had a car city right there. We took that table out, and Chris had about 500 to 1,000 Matchbox cars, and we had a city. We'd have traffic jams in Main Street, and we had a school and a hospital and NASCAR, a track, and
firehouse.
yeah, and we played all the time.
It was right at the end of his kindergarten year, so he was just six. Just turned 6. Well, it was very difficult to know when Chris's health was changing because there really were no symptoms until it became very critical. In other words, because it was a brain tumor and his was a liquid tumor, there was no mass. The only way we knew that something was different was that he would get sometimes real intense headaches that were very short in duration, maybe like 10, 15 seconds long. And he might wake up from his sleep just screaming because his head felt like it was, pounding. And then within 5 minutes, he was back to sleep again. So this happened a couple of times, and we did take him to the doctor, and the doctor missed it.
We never talked about how long. We just never even, we didn't feel the need to know, and they never really discussed it. But after the fact that we found out from our pediatrician that they gave him 3 months to live.
Dad became ill about 1.5 years ago, so his doctor had suggested the Porter Hospice facility, and so we moved Dad here.
Dad knew that Mom was here. We told him right away that she was being brought here, and she was down the hall from him. And so he was asking a lot of questions. How's she doing? What's going on? He was aware when she passed away. One of the nurses was in the room caring for Dad, and he gasped, and he said, I think she's gone. And it did turn out that, yes, she had passed away at that time. So there was a connection there that they felt. He kept saying, 67 years.
Yeah.
67 years. He said that so many times. And while it was difficult, we could feel nothing but joy because Mom had gone to glory.
When Mom passed away here, we were debating what to do for her memorial service, and almost immediately we thought, I wonder if Porter Hospice would let us hold the service here. And as it turns out, it was probably one of the highlights of my dad's life, I think, being able to be wheeled down the hallway and participate in that service. And Dad really ramped up his energy level for that day. You could just see he was so happy to see everybody. And then after that, you could see that he had used up his life, and he just started to gradually decline.
But I remember when we were meeting with the neurologist, we saw Dr. Foreman on a Thursday, and they were doing radiation that Wednesday.
That part was hard because it was really tough for us to see him in a diminished way. Then, when he lost his hair, he just said, well, I guess I don't have to wash my hair that much anymore. And he would always look at the sunny side of things. It didn't bother him. He didn't care he was in pain. And the first time that the butterfly nurses came to our home, it was a glorious day, because I just remember 3 people walking in and sitting right down and just digging right into the business and saying, we are here for you guys. We're going to make a plan for you based on everything that you want and need for Chris. We won't do anything more or anything less than what you ask us. And they were so kind. I just felt so safe in the hands of the butterfly nurses. And then we had a chaplain, we had some different therapists come to the home as well. So yeah, wonderful, wonderful people. At one point, I know he got really, really fatigued. And at some point he just said, Mom, I'm ready to go home. And he was, pointing up to heaven, he said, I'm ready. And I think at that point he gave us permission to back off and say, I know you guys are trying everything, but I'm really okay.
So it was about a month. It was in August. And we had our car city all set up. And I came home from work, and Chrissy, he could no longer sit up on his own. And that was sort of the defining moment, when I knew that the end was approaching.
When Chris did take his last breath, we were all around his bed at that moment. And Greg, with precision I've never seen before, he said, we need to all gather around. Gregory started talking to Chris, and even though Chris was, in an altered state at that point because he had been in a coma, I heard Greg say, I'm going to let go of your hand now, and Jesus is going to take your hand. Within a matter of minutes, and I'm sure you must have called somebody.
I called Dora.
The nurse and the caseworker, social worker were at our door, and I remember the nurse saying, I want you to hold Chris as long as you're comfortable. And I got to hold my baby for what felt like an hour. It may have been more or less, I don't know. But I just remember looking at his mouth and watching him go from kind of almost a grimace, to a smile. And I remember just having that image of him, seared into my brain, that he had a smile on his face when he went to be with the Lord.
There were so many months that I walked up the pathway here, and such a range of emotions. Some days it was excitement, some days it was weariness. But when I got here and I walked in, I was always greeted by the staff. I was always loved and hugged. And I walked down the path encouraged. And once Mom and Dad passed away, there was an empty spot because I wasn't seeing these people I had made friends with over the last 6 months, who I saw on a day-to-day basis. They were family. So that's why I feel that this is such an important place in our lives.
I don't know exactly why I feel the need to continue our connection and support with this facility, but it was just such a part of our lives for that traumatic 6 months that one of the fun things that we've done is put a Keurig in the break room for the staff. And the idea is that if it ever fails, my phone number's on it, and I expect to get a phone call. It's just a great way to remember him, and every time I'm in here, somebody reminds me that that Keurig is in there, so it's a way of keeping his memory alive.
I definitely felt myself change with the support from the butterfly program, in that I was letting go more of all that control that I felt like I needed to have, because I felt like we had a soft landing, not only for our wonderful son and the health challenges he was facing, but also for our emotions. And I mean, really, Butterfly saved my soul, you know, from complete despair. And so, yeah, I went through a major transformation of, you know, just being so gracious for everything that they did.
Well, I would hope for families going through this journey that they can just rest assured that they're in good hands, and that the Butterfly program is the rock for them and the support that they need to get through the rough road ahead. It's essential. You can't go it alone.
I realize now how Butterfly has become our hope. The encouragement, the positivity that was, you know, given to us at the time when we needed it most. It's taken me 4 years to realize how much that means to me. I'm just really grateful, really, really grateful.